Have you ever noticed how we're taught that helping is always good? From when we're small, we learn that to be kind, to be spiritual, you must always say yes. You must always give. You must never pause or set a boundary, or else you're seen as selfish. You're seen as unkind. But consider this. What if that idea is backwards? What if always helping, always fixing isn't love at all? Think about it like water. Water doesn't force the seed to grow. It simply provides what's needed, then steps back. When you constantly rescue someone from their own actions, you're not helping. You're keeping them from learning. You're standing between them and the wisdom that only comes through experience. Now, this isn't about becoming cold. That's just another extreme. The real question is how we care. More importantly, who we choose to pour our energy into. Because some people will drain you completely. They take, and no matter how much you give, it's never enough. The real tragedy isn't that they're taking, it's that you're preventing their growth. Let me share with you 7 kinds of people to recognize, not to judge them, but to protect your own energy, to allow them to face what they need to wake up. First, the chronically lazy. Notice the difference between someone struggling and someone who's given up. The struggling person uses your help as a stepping stone. The lazy person uses it as a hammock. They've decided, consciously or not, that life is too hard and someone else should carry their weight. The moment you step in, you become that someone. Not because they can't do things themselves, but because they've learned someone always will. Watch nature. A bird doesn't feed a chick that won't open its mouth. A tree doesn't nourish a branch that bears no fruit. Nature is clear. If something isn't contributing, it's eventually let go, not from cruelty, but from wisdom. The lazy person always has an excuse. A difficult past, bad luck, unfair circumstances. Some may be true, but ask yourself, what are they doing right now to change? Any small step, or just waiting for someone to fix it? When you help someone who won't help themselves, you rob them. You take away the satisfaction of their own accomplishment. The strength from overcoming difficulty, the discovery that they are capable. Some of you have carried people for years, paid their bills, solved their problems, cleaned their messes. Each time, you told yourself you were being kind. But what if your kindness is keeping them weak? What if your help is why they can't stand on their own? The lazy person needs to feel hunger. They need discomfort. They need the natural consequences of their choices. Only when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change will they finally move. Second, the perpetually ungrateful. Ever notice how some people receive a gift and treat it like nothing? You could give them your time, your money, your heart, and they take it without a thought. No thanks, no acknowledgement. This isn't an accident, it's a character issue. Gratitude isn't just manners, it's recognizing we're part of something larger. A grateful person sees every kindness as a gift, not something owed. They treat it with reverence. The ungrateful person believes the world owes them. Your help is their right. The more you give, the more entitled they become. It's a strange paradox. The more you pour into them, the less they appreciate. I knew someone who helped a friend with rent for half a year. Month after month, he sacrificed so his friend had a roof. And how did the friend respond? He complained. The apartment was too small. The neighborhood wasn't nice enough. Others had more. Not once did he say thank you. Not once acknowledge the sacrifice. When the help ended, the friend became angry. He felt betrayed, as if the help was a debt called in unfairly. This is the nature of the ungrateful. They don't see kindness, they see weakness. They don't see generosity, they see opportunity. They take until there's nothing left of you. When you help an ungrateful person, you're not sowing seeds. You're throwing them into a bottomless pit. No matter how much you throw, it never fills. Third, the arrogant and self-righteous. Some people don't want your help. They want your validation. They don't want your wisdom. They want you to confirm what they already believe. If you offer anything that challenges their view, they reject you entirely. The arrogant person doesn't lack knowledge. They suffer from excessive pride. They believe they already know. Their way is the right way. Anyone who suggests otherwise is wrong. Pride is a curious thing. It masquerades as confidence, but it's actually fear. The arrogant person is terrified of being wrong because their identity is built on being right. If they admit they don't know, if they acknowledge they need help, their sense of self crumbles. So they double down, they defend, they argue, they reject. You can't help a person like this. Not because they're beyond help, but because they don't believe they need it. Until they realize that themselves, anything you offer is wasted. Even wise teachers walked away from such people. They didn't chase them. They didn't beg them to listen. They simply said what needed said and moved on. They understood you can't force wisdom on someone committed to their own foolishness. The arrogant person must fall. They must experience the consequences of their pride. They must hit the ground hard enough to finally look up and see they don't have all the answers. Only then, when humbled, when broken, will they be ready to receive help. Fourth, the habitually wicked. I want to be careful here. We live in a time that prefers soft language. We say someone is troubled or misunderstood. But there are people who aren't confused. They know exactly what they're doing and do it anyway. The wicked person isn't someone who makes a mistake. We all make mistakes. The wicked person has made wickedness their way of life. They lie, cheat, manipulate, harm others without remorse. When confronted, they don't repent, they justify. When you help a wicked person, you become an accomplice. You enable their behavior. You give them resources to continue doing harm. They will use what you give them not to change, but to go deeper into their wickedness. There's a reason wisdom traditions warn against supporting those who do evil. It's not from lack of compassion. It's from recognizing some have chosen a path to destruction. If you try to pull them off that path, they'll pull you onto it with them. The wicked person doesn't want to be saved. They want to be empowered. They want someone to fund their schemes, cover their lies, clean their messes. If you step into that role, you're not helping. You're partnering with darkness. Fifth, the incurably foolish. A fool isn't someone who lacks intelligence. A fool is someone who refuses to learn. They make the same mistakes over and over. They ignore advice. They reject wisdom. They touch the hot stove repeatedly and wonder why their hand is burned. The difference between wise and foolish is simple. A wise person learns from experience. A fool does not. This is particularly difficult because the fool often comes to you in distress, in crisis, desperate. Your heart goes out to them. You want to help. You want to rescue. But if you look at their history, you see a pattern. This isn't their first crisis. Not the first time they've needed rescue. In fact, they've been here many times before. Each time someone helped, and each time they went back to the same behavior that got them into trouble. The fool is like a person drowning who refuses the life preserver you throw. Instead, they thrash and splash and go under. If you jump in to save them, they'll pull you under too. You can't save a fool. Only life can teach them. Only the consequences of their own actions can break their stubbornness. If you keep intervening, you prevent those consequences from doing their work. Sixth, the master manipulator. The manipulator is perhaps the most dangerous because they're hardest to recognize. They don't come with demands. They come with stories. They don't take from you directly. They make you want to give. The manipulator understands human nature. They know good people want to help. They know kind people feel guilty saying no. They use this knowledge like a weapon. They tell you exactly what you need to hear. They play on your emotions. They make you feel special, needed, important, and before you know it, you're doing things for them you'd never do for anyone else. The manipulator is a shapeshifter. With one person, they're the victim. With another, the hero. They change their story depending on who they're talking to. If you compare notes with others who've dealt with them, the stories don't match. When you help a manipulator, you're not helping a person in need. You're feeding a system. You're providing resources for them to continue their games. The moment you stop giving, the moment you see through the act, they turn on you. They paint you as the villain. Tell others how you wronged them and move on to their next target. 7th, the unrepentant rebel. Finally, the person who knows better but refuses to do better. They've been taught, warned, corrected, but they don't care. They've chosen to continue their destructive path, and nothing you say or do will change their mind. The unrepentant person isn't ignorant. They're defiant. They know what's right, but prefer what's wrong. When you try to help, they nod and smile and agree with everything you say. But the moment you turn your back, they return to their old ways. This is the hardest type to let go of because you see their potential. You see what they could become if they change. So you keep hoping, believing this time will be different, but it never is. The unrepentant person must want to change. Until that desire comes from within, all the help in the world makes no difference. You can't want their healing more than they want it. You can't fight for their freedom harder than they fight for it. If you try, you'll exhaust yourself, while they remain exactly the same. So what do we do with all this? Do we become cold and indifferent? Stop helping altogether? No. We learn discernment. We learn to recognize the difference between someone struggling and someone stuck. We learn to distinguish between someone who needs a hand up and someone who wants a free ride. We learn to see clearly without judgment, but also without illusion. True compassion isn't enabling. True compassion sometimes means stepping back and allowing people to face the consequences of their choices. Because it's often through difficulty, through hardship, through hitting bottom that people finally wake up. When you help the right people, you see fruit. When you pour into good soil, you see growth. But when you give to those not ready, who don't want to change, who will only use you and drain you, all you see is waste. Your energy is precious. Your time is finite. Your resources are limited, and you must be wise about where you invest them. Not everyone deserves your help, and that's not cruelty. That's wisdom. So ask yourself today, who am I helping that I should let go? Who am I rescuing that needs to fall? Who am I enabling that needs to face their own consequences? And when you find the answer, have the courage to step back. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with the understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is allow someone to experience the full weight of their own choices. Because in the end, you cannot save anyone. You can only point the way. And whether they walk that path or not is entirely up to them.